When the team wants the imaginary blue bear to run for election, the guy who plays him objects. He's not real. That is all that politicians are, though. Actors who know that all of politics is a fraud, and they are shills or useful idiots, just like most news anchors. They are either okay with being used or they don't know that they're being used. They are in a play, and their role involves pretending by using embellished rhetoric to fool us. Once a costume is taken off, it is plain for anyone to see what a sham the system is, but since we have grown up in it, we either can't see or outright ignore the multitude of flaws. How do we know this? In the show, like reality, we see one of the campaigning candidates with mothers and children for the press, so we have a fond image of them. Meanwhile, they use their mind-controlled servants of the state, IRS, CIA, FBI, and so forth, to violently force us through financial instability, jail time, or physicality to get us to do whatever they desire, like paying taxes, getting drafted to phony wars, abiding by their man-made laws, and participating in things like jury duty. Government itself is a contradiction, but politicians will always tell you it is a necessary evil. Here's something for you to think about. Individual bees come together to make up the swarm, which is directed by the queen. The many become destitute of their own instincts to follow the will of the one queen. The population equals a state, and the head is the governor or president. Are you with me so far? If we turn it around and think that no, the queen is only following the will of the swarm, then why have a leader if the queen has no will of its own? Politicians want you to think we need leaders, so each of us does what they want instead of doing what we want, because our individual needs would run counter to their plans. That we are represented at all is a complete joke. So, what would we do without them, these politicians? I don't know, maybe communicate with each other on a voluntary basis and cooperate and compromise for mutual gain without some third party domineering everything through money and force? Individual liberty, anarchy, does not equate to chaos, and in fact that is our natural state unless we believe someone has authority over us and thereby give away our freedom and power and imagine it to be legal, right, or legitimate because someone must have control all the time. I mean, it is pretty rare to find power-hungry, corrupt, greedy, and deceitful politicians and elite bankers. But I guess we should just let them run the world instead of taking our lives into our own hands. All you have to do is look at the Renaissance to see that it was not a period of mayhem, but we can examine how when people have the opportunity to surround themselves with creative pursuits, the consciousness of mankind can flourish. But instead of inventing and producing as humans are apt to do, we live by rule of governments, which are parasites that need a host to thrive off of through taxation, wars, laws, etc., and to manipulate them through propaganda, what they determine is the news, while leaving out anything else that does not flow with their purpose. It is just a leech that can only survive if it feeds off of a public that is willing to believe everything it says and that the state's authority is in fact real. As it is, the average person is taxed on about half of his or her income. That may seem like a stretch, but when you consider all the extra stuff with taxes tacked onto them, like gas, clothes, staying overnight at a hotel, products at the store, even the American dream of owning your own business, Uncle Sam has to get a cut of. But we're not slaves, because it's okay that we honor some just and rightful authority, any government, all governments, to steal our wages, because all of it is only going to good and useful areas. And if in the future some guys in the White House say they need to take 75%, that's all right too. And if eventually it is all that we make, this is still America, home of the brave and land of the free. So just keep telling yourself that, because anyone who lives in any country is born onto a slave plantation with a master. Some whip less, and others are more stern, but there is nowhere to escape anymore, since all land is owned by one territorial body or another, so I guess we might as well pick one. If gradually they all end up to even out and become about the same, since they're all owned by the elites, then that's just fine, because right now we can check our TikTok videos, and national and state beaches are open part-time whenever we're not supposed to be afraid of whatever government tells us to be afraid of. So there's no need to fight for the future, I guess. Let's return to the show and the underlying message. I'm the voice of a blue bear. If that's doing well, we're all doomed. Also, on the side of the van, it reads, "Vote Waldo," repeatedly with animation. The more we go down this path, we are all doomed, since voting is like praying to a superstition for the world to get better. But since we don't change anything, it keeps getting worse. We keep leaving it to the hands of the politicians. The main politician, Monroe, is sitting on a panel in the consecutive scene talking about vices, like drug use being a criminal offense. Moreover, these same men make laws that condemn people for sitting besides a plant, peacefully besides a plant in their own house, like marijuana. They can also switch back and forth with what is illegal and what is not, like they did with alcohol during the Prohibition, and trick us on such levels that if we cross a line in the dirt, it's okay to have a firearm, but if you don't, then you can be locked up, depending on the state. I hope this is coming across. We are all owned by the kings, queens, dukes, and lords because we're just serfs in a feudal system working for them. We don't need them. It's not politicians that build the roads, it's us. It's not presidents leading the charge into battle, risking life and limb, it's us. If we are all equal to them, where is your Secret Service to protect you? Do you get a televised and decorated funeral procession when you die? All they do is rob us, so they acquire unlimited resources to do whatever they want and keep a lot of it confidential. Then cast us under a mentality of, but what would you do without us to build your schools and parks, and what if our diplomacy doesn't work and you get invaded? They don't produce anything, and they instigate wars with our neighbors for their own personal interests. They make theft legal through their political extortion racket, where we have to pay to be a part of their corrupt civilization, whether we like it or not.